The giant space station floated in the darkness between stars. Its metal walls gleamed under the light of distant suns. Inside the main hall, beings from across the galaxy sat in rows of seats. Today was supposed to be a day of peace. Today was supposed to end the war. Hyun-Woo Park walked slowly to his seat at the big table. His black suit was perfect. His face showed no emotion. He was Earth's top diplomat, and he carried the hopes of billions of humans on his shoulders. But something cold twisted in his stomach as he looked at the creatures sitting across from him. The Keltharians were not pleasant to look at. Their skin was like snake scales, dark green and shiny. Their eyes were yellow and narrow like a cat's eyes. When they smiled, rows of sharp teeth showed. High Commander Vextar sat in the center of their group. He was bigger than the others, with scars across his face from old battles. "Welcome, Ambassador Park," Vextar said. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "Today we make history." Hyun-Woo nodded politely. "Yes, Commander. Peace at last." But Hyun-Woo knew better. He knew this was all a lie. In the seats above, the main floor, Soo-Jin Kim watched everything with sharp eyes. She was young for such an important job, only 32 years old. But she was the best intelligence officer Earth had ever trained. Her fingers moved across her data pad, reading reports that came in every few minutes. Next to her sat Admiral Tae-Ho Lee. He was an old man with gray hair and kind eyes. But those eyes had seen too much war, too much death. His hands were folded in his lap, but Soo-Jin could see the tension in his shoulders. "Are you ready?" he whispered to her. Soo-Jin nodded. "Everything is in place." Down at the main table, alien diplomats from 17 different worlds sat watching. They all wanted this war to end. For 3 years, humans and Keltharians had fought across dozens of star systems. Whole planets had been burned. Millions had died. Everyone was tired of the fighting. But the aliens didn't know what Soo-Jin knew. They didn't know what her team had discovered 6 months ago. It had been a normal day when the intercepted message came in. Soo-Jin was drinking coffee in her small office on Earth's moon base when her computer started beeping. The signal was weak, broken up by space interference. But her team of code breakers worked for days to clean it up. When they finally heard it clearly, Soo-Jin almost dropped her coffee cup. "Phase 1 complete," the Keltharian voice had said. "The humans believe we want peace. Phase 2 begins at the signing ceremony. The biological weapon will be ready." Soo-Jin had run to her commander's office so fast she almost fell down the stairs. Within hours, the message was on the desk of every important human leader. Within days, Earth's greatest minds were working on a plan. Now, 6 months later, that plan was ready. Hyun-Woo picked up the peace treaty from the table. The document was thick, full of complicated words about trade agreements and border controls. He had helped write many of these words himself. But he knew they meant nothing. The Keltharians had never planned to honor this treaty. "Shall we begin?" Vextar asked. His yellow eyes gleamed with what looked like happiness. "Of course," Hyun-Woo said. Around the Great Hall, news reporters from across the galaxy recorded everything. This would be broadcast to trillions of beings on thousands of worlds. Everyone would see the moment when humans and Keltharians finally made peace. But hidden in the shadows of the space station, other things were happening. Captain Ji-Hoon Nam stood on the bridge of his ship, the Silent Thunder. His vessel was invisible, using technology that bent light around it like water around a stone. Through his window, he could see the peace conference happening inside the station. But his eyes were focused on something else. His sensors showed him what the conference guests could not see. Hidden behind a small moon, a massive Keltharian battle fleet waited. 200 ships, armed with enough weapons to destroy entire planets. They were supposed to be a secret. They were supposed to attack as soon as the peace treaty was signed. "Captain," his communications officer said, "we have the signal. All human ships are in position." Ji-Hoon nodded. "Good. Tell them to wait for my command." Back in the conference hall, the ceremony continued. An alien priest from the peaceful Valdorian species said a prayer for peace. A choir of beings from different worlds sang together in harmony. It was beautiful. It was touching. It was all about to become a lie. Sujin checked her watch. In her earpiece, she could hear reports from agents all across the galaxy. Human spies who had been placed in Keltharian society years ago were sending their final messages. "Weapon confirmed," came one voice. "It's in the air system." "Fleet movement detected," came another. "They're getting ready to move." "Command structure mapped," said a third. "We know where all their leaders are." Sujin smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had set a trap and was watching their enemy walk into it. Admiral Tae-Ho Lee noticed her expression. "You look like a cat who caught a mouse," he whispered. "Not yet," Sujin replied. "But soon." Down at the main table, Hyunwoo was reading the final parts of the treaty out loud. His voice was calm and professional. He sounded like a man who truly believed in peace. But inside, his heart was beating fast. He thought about his daughter, back on Earth. She was 7 years old, with bright eyes and a love for drawing pictures of spaceships. He thought about all the human children who would grow up free because of what was about to happen here. The Keltharians had made one big mistake. They thought humans were weak because they wanted peace. They thought humans were stupid because they trusted easily. They had forgotten that humans had been fighting wars against each other for thousands of years before they ever met an alien. Humans knew how to fight. More importantly, humans knew how to think. And so, Hyunwoo said, reaching the end of the document, "We commit ourselves to lasting peace between our peoples." Vextar's smile grew wider. In a few minutes, his biological weapon would be released through the space station's air system. Every human leader would be dead within an hour. Then his hidden fleet would attack Earth and all human colonies while they were still in shock. It was a perfect plan, except that humans had known about it from the very beginning. The signing ceremony was about to begin. Across the galaxy, people watched their screens with hope in their hearts. They thought they were about to witness the birth of peace. Instead, they were about to learn why nobody should ever try to trick humanity. The real show was about to start. 3 months before the peace conference, Dr. Yoon-ha Choi was working late in her secret laboratory. The lab was hidden deep inside Earth's moon base, behind layers of security doors and false walls. Only 12 people in the entire galaxy knew it existed. Yoon-ha stared at the tiny sample of Keltharian biological weapon under her microscope. The virus was beautiful in a deadly way. It looked like a tiny crystal flower, but it was designed to kill every human it touched. The Keltharians had spent years making it perfect. Clever, she whispered to herself, but not clever enough. Chunha was 38 years old and had studied alien biology for 15 years. She knew more about how different species worked than almost anyone alive. When human intelligence first brought her the Keltharian weapon sample, she had been excited. Not because it could kill millions of people, but because it was a puzzle she could solve. The weapon targeted human DNA in a very specific way. It found certain genetic markers that only humans had, then attacked the immune system from the inside. Within hours, a human would get sick. Within days, they would die. It was invisible, odorless, and could spread through air or water. But Yoon-ha had found something the Keltharians didn't know about their own weapon. It could be changed, modified, turned around. "Computer," she said to the lab's artificial intelligence, "run simulation number 412. The large screen on the wall showed a 3D model of the virus. But this was Yoon-ha's version. Her counter-weapon. Instead of targeting human DNA, it would target Keltharian genetic markers. Instead of killing humans, it would make Keltharians very sick. Simulation complete, the computer said. Success rate 97%. Yoon-ha smiled. After months of work, she had done it. She had turned the Keltharians' own weapon against them. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, Min-ho, Yoon was having dinner with a group of Keltharian officers. To them, he looked like one of their own kind. His disguise was perfect, created by Earth's best scientists. Fake scales covered his skin. Contact lenses made his eyes yellow. Even his smell was changed to match Keltharian scent. For 2 years, Minho had lived among the enemy. He ate their food, learned their language, and pretended to hate humans as much as they did. It was the hardest job he had ever done, but also the most important. "The peace conference will be our greatest victory," said Captain Zorthak, raising his cup of bitter Keltharian wine. "Soon all humans will be dead, and we will rule their worlds." Minho raised his own cup and smiled, showing fake sharp teeth. "To victory," he said in perfect Keltharian language. Inside, his stomach turned. These creatures were talking about killing his friends, his family, everyone he had ever loved. But he kept his face calm and his voice steady. This was not the time for emotions. This was the time for information. Later that night, alone in his small apartment, Minho sent another coded message to Earth. His fingers moved quickly across the hidden transmitter built into his wall. The message would take 3 days to reach human space, bouncing off secret relay stations to avoid detection. "Fleet confirmed at coordinates 7 Alpha 9, he typed. 200 ships. Attack planned for 1 hour after treaty signing. Weapon deployment confirmed through main air system. Leadership will attend ceremony in person." Each piece of information was another nail in the Keltharians' coffin. They thought they were being clever by keeping their plans secret. But Minho heard everything. He attended their planning meetings. He ate dinner with their commanders. He even helped them check their weapon systems. They trusted him completely. They had no idea he was human. Back on Earth, Admiral Young-Suk Han stood in the war room deep beneath the capital city. The room was huge, with screens covering every wall. Each screen showed different parts of human space and beyond. Ship movements, supply lines, communications networks. Everything the human military needed to know was displayed here. "Report," she said to her staff. Colonel Park stepped forward. He was a tall man with serious eyes. "All fleets are in position, Admiral. The Keltharians think our main forces are celebrating the peace treaty. They don't know we've moved most of our ships to attack positions." Young-Suk nodded. The Keltharians expected to find human ships relaxed and unprepared. Instead, they would find the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. "What about the colonies?" she asked. "Protected," Colonel Park replied. "We've moved civilian populations to safe zones. Military bases are at full alert but hidden from their sensors." Young-Suk walked to the main display screen. It showed the entire galaxy, with thousands of colored dots representing ships and bases. Red dots were Keltharian forces. Blue dots were human forces. For months it had looked like the red dots were winning. But now Young-Suk could see the truth. The blue dots surrounded the red dots completely. "They think they're the hunters," she said quietly. "They don't realize they're the prey." At the same time, in another secret facility on Earth's moon, teams of engineers were working on the most important machines humanity had ever built. These were not weapons or shields or faster-than-light engines. They were air filters, tiny air filters, smaller than a grain of rice. Each one was designed to fit inside a human's nose without being seen or felt. They would block the Keltharian biological weapon completely while letting normal air pass through. "How many do we have ready?" asked the chief engineer. 5,000, his assistant replied. "More than enough for everyone at the conference." "Good. Package them for immediate delivery." The filters would be delivered to the space station in secret, hidden inside normal supplies. Every human at the peace conference would wear one without the Keltharians knowing. When the biological weapon was released, it would find nothing to attack. But that was not the best part of the plan. The best part was Dr. Yunha Choi's counter-weapon. While the Keltharians were releasing their virus into the air system, the humans would be releasing their own modified version. The Keltharians thought they were poisoning their enemies. Instead, they would be poisoning themselves. 3 days before the conference, all the pieces came together. Minho sent his final intelligence report. Dr. Yunha finished her counterweapon. Admiral Young-Suk moved her fleets to their final positions. The air filters were secretly delivered to the space station. Everything was ready. But the Keltharians didn't know any of this. They thought their plan was perfect. They thought humans were weak and trusting and easy to fool. They thought they would win the war with one clever trick. They were wrong about everything. High Commander Vextar reviewed his plans one last time. In just a few days, he would be the hero who destroyed humanity forever. His name would be remembered across the galaxy as the greatest military leader in Keltharian history. He had no idea that he was walking into the biggest trap ever set. The peace conference was about to begin. Both sides thought they knew how it would end. Only one side was right. The stage was set. The actors were in place. The greatest show in galactic history was about to begin, and humanity held all the cards. The signing ceremony began with music. A choir of beings from 12 different worlds sang a song of peace in their own languages. The sound was beautiful, like nothing else in the galaxy, but underneath the music, death was waiting. Yunwu. Park sat at the main table, watching High Commander Vextar pretend to smile. The Keltharian leader's yellow eyes kept moving to a small device on his wrist. Hyunwoo knew what that device was. It was connected to the biological weapon hidden in the space station's air system. In 30 minutes, Vextar would press a button. The weapon would be released. Every human in the room was supposed to die. But Hyunwoo touched his nose gently, feeling the tiny air filter that Dr. Yoonha Choi had created. It was so small he couldn't even tell it was there. Neither could the Keltharians watching him. "Ladies and gentlemen," announced the ceremony master, an elderly alien with blue skin and kind eyes. "Today we witness the end of a terrible war. Today, peace returns to our galaxy." The crowd of diplomats and reporters clapped their hands, wings, and tentacles. Everyone was happy. Everyone except the humans who knew what was really about to happen. Soo-Jin Kim sat in the viewing gallery, her fingers moving across her data pad. Reports were coming in from human agents all across the galaxy. The Keltharian fleet was moving into position behind the small moon. Their ground forces were preparing to attack human colonies. Everything was going exactly as the intercepted messages had said it would. "Signal from Captain Ji-hoon," she whispered to Admiral Tae-ho Lee. "What does he say?" the old admiral asked. "All human ships are ready. The trap is set." Admiral Tae-ho nodded slowly. He had fought in wars for 40 years, but he had never seen anything like this. Usually wars were won by the side with bigger guns or more ships. Today the war would be won by the side that was smarter. At the main table, an alien priest began reading a prayer for peace. The words were in the ancient galactic language that all diplomats learned. Hyunwoo listened politely, but his mind was somewhere else. He thought about his daughter back on Earth. She was in school right now, learning about math and science and art. She didn't know that her father was sitting in a room full of creatures who wanted to kill her and everyone she knew. She didn't know that in a few minutes the fate of the entire human race would be decided. But she would be safe. They all would be safe, because humans had learned to think ahead. "Now we come to the signing," the ceremony master announced. "High Commander Vextar of the Keltharian Empire will sign first." Vextar stood up slowly. He was tall, even for a Keltharian, with scars across his face from old battles. When he smiled, his sharp teeth gleamed in the light. He picked up the special pen used for important galactic treaties. As he signed his name in flowing Keltharian script, Vextar's other hand moved to the device on his wrist. In just a few minutes, he would activate the biological weapon. Then he would watch as every human in the room collapsed and died. It would be beautiful. "Ambassador Park," the ceremony master called. "Please sign for the human race." Hyunwoo stood and walked to the table. The treaty was thick and covered with official seals. He had helped write many of these words himself, working late into the night to make everything perfect. But he knew the treaty was meaningless. The Keltharians had never planned to honor it. He signed his name carefully. Around the room, cameras recorded every moment. Trillions of beings across the galaxy were watching this moment of supposed peace. "And now," the ceremony master said, "we share the traditional wine of friendship." Servers brought cups of wine to everyone in the room. The wine was from Earth, a sweet red wine that humans had made for thousands of years. Vextar looked at his cup with disgust, but he would drink it anyway. It was part of the ceremony. But the wine was not just wine. Dr. Yunha Choi had added something special to it. Something that would help her counterweapon work even better. To peace, Vexitar said, raising his cup. To peace, Hyunwoo replied. They drank together, all around. The room, diplomats and reporters drank the wine and smiled. Vextar looked at his wrist device again. It was time. He pressed the button. Deep in the space station's machinery, valves opened. Fans turned on. The biological weapon began flowing through the air system, invisible and odorless. Within minutes, it would reach every corner of the station. Vextar waited for the humans to start coughing, then choking, then dying. But nothing happened. The humans kept smiling and talking. They showed no signs of sickness at all. Vextar frowned. Perhaps the weapon needed more time to work. He would wait, but while he waited, something else was happening. Something he didn't know about. At the same time the Keltharian weapon was released, Sujin Kim pressed a button on her datapad. This button activated Dr. Yunha Choi's counterweapon, which had been hidden in the same air system for weeks. The counterweapon looked exactly like the Keltharian biological weapon, but instead of targeting human DNA, it targeted Keltharian genetics. It had been designed specifically to attack their immune systems, just like their weapon attacked human immune systems. Dr. Yunha had made one important change, though. Her weapon worked much faster. The first Keltharian to feel sick was a young officer sitting near the back of the room. He started coughing, then holding his throat. Within seconds, he collapsed to the floor. "Medic!" someone shouted. But before anyone could help the first officer, a second Keltharian fell down, then a third, then more. All around the room, Keltharian delegates were collapsing. Their green-scaled skin was turning pale. Their yellow eyes were rolling back in their heads. Some were shaking, others could barely breathe. "What's happening?" the ceremony master asked in panic. High Commander Vextar was still standing, but he could feel something wrong in his body. His chest hurt. His vision was getting blurry. This wasn't supposed to happen. The biological weapon was supposed to kill humans, not Keltharians. "You," he gasped, pointing at Hyunwoo. "What did you do?" Hyunwoo stood up calmly. His face was no longer friendly and diplomatic. Now it was cold and hard, like stone. "We did exactly what you planned to do to us," he said in a clear voice that everyone in the room could hear. "The only difference is we did it better." Admiral Taeho Lee stood up in the viewing gallery. His voice was amplified through the room's sound system so everyone could hear. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "what you are seeing is not an attack on peace. What you are seeing is the exposure of those who would destroy peace." The main screens around the room came to life. They showed intercepted Keltharian messages, battle plans, weapon specifications, the hidden fleet waiting behind the moon. Everything. The evidence was clear and undeniable. The Keltharians had planned to use this peace ceremony to commit genocide. Vextar fell to his knees. The counterweapon was working faster than even Dr. Yunha had expected. Around him, his officers and diplomats were unconscious or barely breathing. "How?" he whispered. "How did you know?" Min Ho-yoon appeared from behind a group of alien diplomats. He touched a device on his belt, and his disguise flickered off like a broken hologram. Suddenly, everyone could see that he was human, not Keltharian. "Because I've been living among you for 2 years, Minho said. "I heard every plan. I attended every meeting. I even helped you test your weapons." Vextar's eyes went wide with shock and rage. "Impossible. You're one of us. I know you." "You know a lie," Minho replied. "You trusted a human spy completely and you never even suspected." Outside the space station, Captain Ji-hoon Nam received the signal he had been waiting for. The Silent Thunder and 50 other human ships decloaked around the station, appearing from nowhere like ghosts becoming solid. At the same time, the hidden Keltharian fleet behind the moon found themselves surrounded by 300 human warships that had been waiting in complete silence. The trap was perfect, complete, absolute. The Keltharians had planned to win the war with one clever trick. Instead, they had lost everything in a single moment. The peace treaty had been signed. But peace would come on humanity's terms, not theirs. Emergency lights flashed red throughout the space station. Medical teams rushed into the Great Hall carrying stretchers and emergency equipment. But they were not there to help the Keltharians who had collapsed. They were there to make sure the biological weapon didn't spread to other parts of the station. Admiral Tae-ho Lee walked slowly to the center of the room. His old face was calm, but his eyes were hard as steel. Around him, diplomats from 17 different worlds sat in shocked silence. They had come to witness a peace ceremony. Instead, they were seeing the end of a war. Honored delegates, Admiral Tae-ho began, his voice carrying clearly through the hall's speakers. I know you have many questions. Let me answer them. He pressed a button on his data pad. The main display screens came alive with evidence that had been collected over many months. The first image showed a Keltharian military base on the far side of their home world. 6 months ago, Admiral Tae-ho said, our intelligence teams intercepted this communication. A recording played through the hall's speakers. It was the voice of a Keltharian general speaking to High Commander Vexitar. The peace talks are a perfect opportunity, the voice said. We release the biological weapon during the ceremony. All human leadership dies at once. Then our fleets attack while they are confused and leaderless. Gasps came from the alien diplomats. They looked at the Keltharian delegates who were still alive, but too sick to speak. Some aliens moved their seats away from the Keltharians in disgust. This was not the only message we intercepted, Admiral Tae-ho continued. More recordings played. Keltharian voices discussing the biological weapon, plans to attack human colonies, orders to kill every human man, woman, and child in the galaxy. Each recording was worse than the last. The evidence was clear and complete. The Keltharians had never wanted peace. They had wanted genocide. High Commander Vexitar was still conscious, though barely. He tried to speak, but only a weak croak came from his throat. Dr. Yunha's counterweapon was designed to cause suffering, not quick death. She wanted them to live long enough to see their defeat. Sujin Kim stood up in the viewing gallery. She was young, but her voice was strong and confident. The biological weapon they use today was designed specifically to kill humans, she announced. Our scientists studied it for months. They learned how to turn it around. She pressed a button on her own data pad. The screens now showed detailed images of the virus, with scientific explanations in simple words that everyone could understand. What the Keltharians are experiencing now is their own weapon, modified to target their DNA instead of ours, Sujin explained. They are dying from the same poison they tried to use on us. A blue-skinned diplomat from the Valdorian Republic stood up. This is horrible, she said. How could anyone plan such evil? Because they thought we were weak, Admiral Tae-ho replied. They thought humans were too trusting, too peaceful, too stupid to see through their lies. He walked over to where High Commander Vexitar was struggling to breathe. But humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years before we ever left. Our home planet, the Admiral said, looking down at the Keltharian leader. We know what betrayal looks like. We know how to plan for it. Min Ho-yoon stepped forward. He had removed all of his Keltharian disguise now. His real human face was visible for everyone to see. For 2 years, I lived among them, he said. I ate their food. I learned their language. I pretended to be their friend, and they told me everything. He pulled out a small recording device from his pocket. Every meeting, every plan, every secret weapon. I recorded it all and sent it back to Earth. The device projected a holographic image into the air. It showed the layout of the Keltharian homeworld, with military bases marked in red. It showed their hidden fleet positions. It showed their weapon factories and supply lines. We know where everything is, Minho said simply. Every ship, every base, every leader. We have been watching them for 2 years. Vexitar's eyes went wide with rage and fear. He tried to grab Minho's leg, but he was too weak. The counter-weapon had made him helpless. You trusted me, Vexitar gasped. I ate at your table. You called me friend. Minho looked down at him with cold eyes. You planned to murder my entire species, he said. Did you think I would really be your friend? Captain Ji-hoon Nam's voice came through the communication system from his ship outside the station. Admiral, he reported, the Keltharian fleet has been surrounded. They are demanding to know what happened to their leadership. Show them, Admiral Taeho ordered. The main screens changed to show the space around the station. The hidden Keltharian fleet of 200 ships was completely surrounded by human vessels. There were so many human ships that the Keltharians looked like a small island in an ocean. How many ships do we have out there? Asked a surprised alien diplomat. 800, Admiral Taeho replied calmly. We have been preparing for this moment for 6 months. The alien delegates looked at each other in amazement. The humans had built the largest fleet in galactic history and somehow kept it secret from everyone. But how? Asked the Valdorian diplomat. How did you hide so many ships? Sujin smiled for the first time that day. Because everyone thought we were preparing for peace. When you move ships to protect trade routes and maintain security, during negotiations, nobody asks too many questions. She was right. For months, human ships had been moving into position, but they had always had good explanations. Protecting colonies from pirates, escorting supply convoys, routine training exercises. Nobody suspected that they were actually preparing for the largest military operation in human history. Admiral, Young Suk Han's voice came through the communication system from Earth. All human colonies report ready, she announced. Civilian populations have been moved to safe locations. All military bases are at full alert. We are ready for anything the Keltharians might try. Vextar made a horrible sound that might have been laughter. You think you have won, he wheezed. But there are other fleets, other weapons. You cannot stop us all. Admiral Taeho smiled, but it was not a kind smile. You mean the fleet hiding in the Korath system? He asked. Or the weapons factory on Draxus Prime? Or perhaps the secret base in the asteroid field near Zephyria? Vexitar's face went pale. Those were some of the Keltharians' most secret locations. How could the humans possibly know about them? We know about all of them, Admiral Taeho continued. Right now, human fleets are surrounding every Keltharian military installation in the galaxy. Your leaders are being arrested. Your weapons are being destroyed. Your war is over. The truth was devastating and complete. The humans had not just discovered the Keltharian plot. They had mapped their entire military structure. They had found every secret base, every hidden weapon, every escape plan. The Keltharians had spent years preparing for one perfect attack. The humans had spent months preparing for total victory. But why? Asked a small alien diplomat with big eyes. Why did you let them come so close to hurting you? Why didn't you stop them sooner? Admiral Taeho looked around the room at all the alien faces watching him. Because we needed witnesses, he said simply. We needed everyone in the galaxy to see what the Keltharians really were. We needed proof that could never be denied. He gestured to the screen showing all the evidence. Now you have seen it. Now you know the truth. The Keltharian Empire is not just our enemy. They are the enemy of peace itself. Around the room, alien diplomats were nodding. Some were recording everything on their own devices. Others were already sending messages to their home worlds. The word would spread quickly. Within hours, every civilization in the galaxy would know what had happened here. The Keltharians would have no friends left, no allies. No one would trust them ever again. Vextar realized that his empire had lost more than a war. They had lost their place in galactic society forever. The peace treaty lay on the table signed by both sides, but it was no longer needed. The war was over, and humanity had won it completely. 1 year after the treaty trap incident, as historians would later call it, the galaxy was a very different place. Dr. Yunha Choi stood in her new laboratory on the space station that orbited the galactic capital. Through her window, she could see ships from dozens of different worlds coming and going. They all flew the new symbol of the Galactic Medical Alliance, a white cross surrounded by stars. Her laboratory was no longer hidden or secret. It was the most important medical research center in the galaxy. Alien scientists from every corner of known space came here to learn from her work. Dr. Choi, her assistant, called from across the lab. The Zephyrian delegation has arrived. Yun-Ha looked up from her microscope. The Zephyrians were a proud people who had never asked anyone for help before. But 3 months ago, a plague had started killing their children. Their own doctors could not stop it. Send them in, Yun-Ha said. The Zephyrian doctor who entered was tall and thin with silver skin and large black eyes. He bowed deeply to Yun-Ha, which was something Zephyrians never did for other species. Dr. Choi, he said in careful galactic standard language, my people are dying. We have heard that you can help anyone, even former enemies. Yun-Ha smiled kindly. Bring me samples of the plague. I will find a cure. The Zephyrian's eyes filled with tears of relief. Thank you. How can we ever repay this kindness? By remembering it, Yun-Ha replied, and by helping others when they need you. This was how things worked now. The galaxy had learned that humans did not seek revenge against those who surrendered. They sought cooperation. They sought peace through strength and wisdom. On the other side of the galaxy, Soo-Jin Kim was in a meeting with intelligence officers from 12 different worlds. She was now the director of interspecies intelligence, the most powerful intelligence organization in galactic history. The former Keltharian territories are stable, reported Colonel Vex, a reformed Keltharian who had joined the human cause. The new democratic government is working well. Any signs of rebellion? Soo-Jin asked. None, Colonel Vex replied. The people are too busy rebuilding. They are grateful that humans did not seek revenge. This was true. After the Keltharian Empire fell, many species expected humans to destroy their worlds or enslave their people. Instead, humans had helped them build new governments. They had shared food and medicine. They had treated former enemies like future friends. What about the Outer Rim territories? Soo-Jin asked another officer. The pirates who used to hide in Keltharian space have been captured, the officer reported. Trade routes are safer than they have been in 50 years. Soo-Jin nodded. The galaxy was becoming a better place not through force but through smart planning and patient work. In the Grand Assembly Hall of the new Galactic Council, Ambassador Hyun-Woo Park stood at the podium. He was no longer just Earth's ambassador. He was now the elected mediator of the Galactic Council, chosen by representatives from over 200 worlds. Today we vote on the new peace accords, he announced to the Pact Assembly. These accords will create binding laws against biological weapons, surprise attacks, and genocide. The vote was unanimous. Every single world voted yes. Even the new Keltharian Republic voted yes. Hyun-Woo looked out at the sea of different faces, scaled, furred, feathered, and smooth. A year ago, many of these beings had been enemies or strangers. Now they worked together as friends. The accords are passed, he announced. From this day forward, any species that uses biological weapons against civilians will face the combined military might of the entire galaxy. The assembly erupted in cheers, whistles, roars, and chirps. It was the sound of hope. High Commander, Vextar, now calling himself simply Vex, sat in a small apartment on a peaceful world far from his old empire. He was still alive, though the counter-weapon had left him weak and sick. Dr. Yun-Ha had made sure he lived, but also made sure he could never hurt anyone again. He spent his days writing. Not military plans or attack strategies, but books about the mistakes his people had made. Books warning other species not to follow the path of hatred and conquest. Children from many different worlds read his books in school. They learned about the dangers of thinking your species was better than others. They learned about the importance of keeping promises and telling the truth. Sometimes Vex wondered what would have happened if his people had really wanted peace instead of pretending to want it. Maybe they would still have their empire. Maybe they would be respected instead of pitied. But it was too late for maybe. The Keltharian Empire was gone forever. Captain Ji-Hoon Nam stood on the bridge of his new ship, the peaceful thunder. It was much larger than his old vessel, and it carried both weapons and medical supplies. He was now the commander of the Galactic Peace Fleet, made up of ships from 30 different worlds. "Captain," his communications officer reported. "We're receiving a distress call from the Andrex system." "What's the problem?" Ji-hoon asked. "Natural disaster. Earthquakes have damaged their main cities. They need emergency help." "Set course for Andrex," Ji-hoon ordered. "Full speed." This was what the Peace Fleet did. They did not fight wars anymore. They helped people. They rescued the lost. They protected the weak. They turned former warships into tools of mercy. On Earth, Admiral Young-Suk Han walked through the new memorial garden. The garden honored all the people who had died in the war, humans and aliens alike. Even Keltharian soldiers were remembered here because death was sad no matter which side you were on. She stopped at a statue in the center of the garden. It showed a human and a Keltharian shaking hands. The inscription below read, "Peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is the presence of understanding." Young-Suk's granddaughter ran up to her carrying a flower she had picked. "Grandmother," the little girl asked, "why did the bad aliens want to hurt us?" Young-Suk knelt down to her granddaughter's level. "Because they were afraid," she said gently. "They thought being strong meant making others weak. They didn't understand that real strength comes from making others strong too." "Are they still afraid?" the girl asked. "Some of them," Young-Suk replied. "But we're teaching them not to be. We're showing them that we can all be strong together." Min Ho-yoon had retired from spy work. He now ran a school on Earth where alien children came to learn about human culture, and human children learned about alien cultures. The school was always full of laughter and friendship. In his office, he kept a picture from his time undercover with the Keltharians. It reminded him that enemies could become friends if you gave them the chance. One day, a young student asked him, "Teacher Min-ho, was it hard to pretend to be a Keltharian?" "Yes," Min-ho replied honestly. "But the hardest part was not hating them, even when they said terrible things. Hate makes you stupid. I had to stay smart." "Are you friends with any Keltharians now?" the student asked. Min-ho smiled. "Yes. Some of the officers I knew during the war have become good people. They help us teach others about the mistakes of the past." Across the galaxy, the changes continued. Former battlefields became parks. Old weapons factories became schools. Warships became exploration vessels and hospital ships. The Keltharian biological weapon was turned into medicine that could cure diseases. The human counterweapon was destroyed completely. Dr. Yunha made sure no one could ever use it again. Trade between worlds increased by 400%. Scientific discoveries were shared freely. Art and music flowed between species like water. But the most important change was simple. People trusted each other. The galaxy had learned that humans kept their promises. When they said they wanted peace, they meant it. When they said they would protect their friends, they did it. When they said they would help their enemies become better, they proved it. And so the galaxy prospered under human leadership, not because humans were stronger or smarter than everyone else, but because they understood something that the Keltharians never had. The best way to win a war is to make sure no one wants to fight anymore. The peace treaty that had started as a lie became the foundation of the greatest era of cooperation in galactic history. And it all began because humans had known from the start that their enemies were lying, and had been wise enough to turn that lie into truth. The galaxy was finally, truly at peace.